Hello everyone, this is City Scrapper. Thanks so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout for you that I made for the Mixed Media Frenzy hop for January, and the name of the hop is Cheers to the New Year. So to make a New Year's layout, I decided I was going to use a cut file. And this is from the Silhouette design store. I will include the ID and the name for the cut file in the description box. I decided that I wanted to do something a little different to the cut file. So you could see I've already started by using a very fine stencil and putting some texture paste through the stencil onto the cut file. The texture paste is Heidi Swapp metallic texture paste, and it says that it's black, but it's really like a dark gray color. And I like the way adding some texture like this to a cut file or to any cardstock embellishment just gives the cardstock a little bit more character and interest. And that was a Tim Holtz stencil that I used. I'll put the information for that in the description box as well. Now I am adding a little bit of extra color by going around first with some DecoArt metallic luster in brilliant turquoise. And I'm just going over a couple of the areas where I added the texture paste just to give it a little bit more color, and it's metallic, so it looks super shiny and pretty. Then I didn't have that same product in pink, so I took out some BoBunny glitter paste that I had, and it was a perfect match for the color pink that I knew I was going to be using. And so I'm just, same thing, just spreading around a little bit of that glitter paste in a couple of areas, and mainly the areas that the texture paste is already on. And I bought a whole bunch of those glitter pastes, and I don't use them as much as I should, so I was happy to get some use out of them. And it made a really nice effect. I'm not sure if you can see it on the video or not, but I was pretty happy with the way that that turned out. It just gave a little bit of extra something to the cut file. So now I am going to make the background. And I know that most of the background is going to be covered up by the cut file. I backed my cut file with some Vicki Boutin papers that were from the Kaleidoscope collection. I just had a few colors that I liked that were scraps that were tucked into the pad, so I decided to make use of those. I used pink and like a lime green color and a turquoise color. So those are the colors that I'm going to put in the background. And normally I would try to put different colors in the background, but because that cut file is black, there's going to be a huge separation between the letters in the cut file and the background anyway, so I'm not worried that they're the same color. I have already coated this piece of cardstock with some white gesso, and this cardstock, I use the same cardstock all the time. It's smooth white, 120-pound cardstock. It is copy paper cardstock. It is super, super thick. I always have to just make sure that I'm only holding one piece of paper, and I bought it in a large quantity. So even though I kind of spent a lot on the large quantity, I will not have to buy mixed media paper for many, many years. And so yeah, it's a kind of a good buy, and I really like the way it takes the paint. So that's what I use. So I'm adding all different brands of sprays here. For the pink, I used a Lindy spray and also a Glimmer mist spray. For the green, I used some Tim Holtz Distress ink sprays and a Heidi Swapp Color Shine. And I also used a Heidi Swapp Color Shine for the turquoise color, and also a Glimmer mist. That's that turquoise color. So I like to use more than one of each color. I learned that from Missy Whitten, and I feel like it does add a lot of depth to the areas of color when you have more than one of the same color. You know, different shades of the same color. So I'm going in and building up those areas of color, and I have to say this just, it looks like a huge explosion, but I like this color combination. I like the way this looks together, and I do know that most of this is going to be covered up because the cut file is going to be going in the center of the layout. But there are some areas that are, you could see through the cut file to the background. So I figured instead of figuring out exactly where those are, I'll just put some paint on the background. I enjoy doing that. I'm going in now and I'm putting some droplets of water on the background and using a paper towel to absorb the water, and that lifts off some of the color from the background. And I also use this technique a lot. I really love the effect. It just adds such a cool effect, I think, to the areas of spray. So there you could see the cut file is, the same color. When I tried it over the background, I decided that I didn't have enough areas that reached down to the bottom and up to the top. I saw there were some areas that wouldn't really have much showing, sticking out or peeking out from behind the cut file. So I added a few more areas that were outside of the area I've already covered. And then I just go back in and I repeat that same process with the droplets of water. And when I watch this footage and it's not fast forwarded, it seems so slow. But now that I'm watching it sped up, it looks like I'm kind of attacking the paper. I do dry between each application of color. I don't like it when the colors mix together, usually. So I make sure that everything is dry, especially with the white splatters, because if it's not dry, the white splatters will just disappear. So I make sure I dry it really well. I just added some watered down white acrylic paint, and I only wanted a few black splatters. I didn't want to have big splatters of black. So when I only want tiny little splatters, I use this technique where I just take my scissors and I hit it against, is that the nozzle, and then the little piece of plastic that goes inside. I don't know what that's called. But anyway, that just creates tiny splatters. So this is a stencil that I cut on my silhouette, and I just cut this fireworks cut file on a piece of plastic so I could use it again as a stencil. It really would have to be cut on a thicker material than this kind of flimsy plastic to be a really good stencil, but it does kind of work. The other thing is I'm using some gold paint, and it's not as thick as texture paste, so I did have some paint that seeped behind the stencil. It didn't just seep. In some cases, the little bit of the stencil would lift it up, and that's okay. I end up going in and fixing that large firework spray to the left that I just put on. I put some white paint to cover up that large area of gold, and then all the other areas get covered up. Any of the other little mistakes, those all end up getting covered up. But you can still see in the final product, you can still see some of this stencil work. So it all worked out in the end. So you can see I'm adding a couple of different, I'm adding the paint to a couple of different places. Although this does look like a huge explosion of color, when I put the cut file on, I did want there to be some areas of white along the edge. I didn't want to go right up to the edge. So I did stop short a little, leave a little bit of a border around the outside. And here you can see I'm going back in with some white paint just to cover up that really large little goof up on the top. And then I'm going around with some white paint just to cover up a couple of little splotches that are around the outside. It wouldn't be the worst thing to leave them, but since I already had the white paint out, I thought I would just touch those up as well. And I do keep putting the cut file back on top just to make sure that I'm putting the color where it should be and the stencil work where it should be. And I do cover these up, but you don't end up seeing those. So I'm just trying to touch things up a little bit, but in the end, it all came out fine. I just decided to add one little extra spray over there. And again, it leaked through. I'm going to have to make another one of these stencils on a thicker piece of plastic. So now this is my photo. This is a photo of my older daughter and her boyfriend, and it was taken this New Year's. And I actually got this from Instagram, and there was a little, you know, when you post on Instagram, you can put some text underneath, and I thought what he wrote was really cute. So I am going to put that on a tag behind the picture so she can look at that years from now. So I'm making a little pocket for the tag that I'm going to make behind the photo. It's just really simple, just using some of the fun foam. I put that piece on the wrong side, so now it's going in the right direction. And then I decided, I wasn't sure if I was going to pop the whole thing up, and then I decided I'm just going to go ahead and pop up the whole cut file on some of that adhesive foam. And I'm using some 1/8 inch foam, you know, that roll of foam adhesive, just to put a couple of bits on the cut file. I only put that foam tape on the first two letters, the H and the A, and then I do go back after the whole thing is assembled and I tuck a little bit more under the first P because it was sagging a little bit when I put the whole cut file on. That area wasn't supported, so I just went back in and just put a little bit more underneath that P. That I do long after the layout is completed. And here I'm using my ATG adhesive. I'm struggling a little bit. I can usually don't have any problem using that to stick down the cut files, and it also enables me to move it around a little bit. I forgot to take the adhesive off of the H and the A. That foam tape, I feel like once you put that down, you can't get that up. So I wanted to be really, really sure that I liked the placement before I stuck that down. So I put some ATG adhesive on the foam. I tried to be careful not to get it inside the pocket because I don't want my tag to stick once I put it inside of that little pocket that I made out of the foam there. And I looked through my tags, and this wasn't really, you can see there I have a black tag, but the dimensions weren't quite right, and I just felt it would be easier to just make something out of a piece of black cardstock. So I made that, but then I decided to change the angle a little bit on the top, and you can see I'm just using the tag that I had in my stash to help me out with making the tag. So looking through the Vicki Boutin pad that I was using, I found this rainbow piece of paper. It had a whole bunch of colors, many that I don't have on the layout, but I decided that I liked the way that it looked. So I cut a very thin strip, probably 1/4 of an inch, for the top and the bottom, and I inked it along the edges. And lately I've been having some issues with inking things and then putting them on the background before the ink dries and making a big mess. So I used my heat tool to dry the ink that was on the bottom strip because I had already put the adhesive on it. But for the top strip, I just put it aside and let it dry because that one I had not put any adhesive on yet. I decided to make the top of the tag pink. So I used the same scraps I used to back the cut file. And here I'm adding the year. And now that I feel that has dried, I am attaching it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to put the colors going the same way as the one on the bottom, but then I decided to just put them going the opposite way. I feel like either way would have been fine. And here I'm punching out some stars, and I got this punch at Tuesday morning. I passed it up. I'm so glad I went back and got it the next time because I use this punch all the time to add little stars to things. And that paper was from Joann. I wish I bought more than one of those pads. They were like less than $1, and I was trying to be good and not buy a ton of stuff, but I use that pad all the time. There's 8 sheets, and I'm trying to be careful not to waste them because it's just a great thickness and has a great, it's gold, but it's not too shiny. I really love that paper. So I'm adding a bunch of little stars around the cut file. And there are all different size stars. There's larger ones that you can see really easily, but then there's also, you can see those teeny tiny little pieces, and those are actually in the shape of stars. So after I attach a bunch of stars to the cut file and a few around the background, I take those teeny tiny little stars and I make use of some of them, and I attach them to the firework up on the top, that big firework. Is that the singular of fireworks? The one that's on the top, so you could see here, I'm just using that little tool, and I'm just trying to stick a couple of those little stars onto the gold paint there. And I cut out some of that because this video was already kind of long and I didn't want to have you sit there watching me glue teeny, teeny, tiny little stars to the layout for a long time. So then I added a piece of ribbon to the tag, and I am adding some of these gold, I don't know what you call them, jewels? I guess they're jewels, to the background, and I'm putting the teeniest, tiniest ones in the center of those tiny little stars. And I also use some of the medium jewels as well. I just wanted there to be a little shimmer and glimmer without anything being too large. I feel like there's a lot of large elements on the page. The cut file is large. The patterns that I backed the cut file with are like larger patterns. So I wanted there to be some things that were petite and small on the layout. So I'm just going around adding those mainly to the stars. I also add some photo corners to two of the corners that are opposite from each other. I punch it out of that same gold paper. I punch out a corner for each of those two corners and then another star. And then I put one of the larger, not the large, but larger than the tiniest of the jewels on top of each of those stars. And the final touch is I add a slightly larger jewel to the ribbon on the tag. And that completes this layout. In the description box, you'll find links to all of the other scrapbookers who are playing along with the January Mixed Media Frenzy Cheers to the New Year hop. I think you'll enjoy checking them all out. I hope if you like this video, you'll give it a thumbs up and think about subscribing to my channel. And thank you so much to my current subscribers. And I know it's a little late, but Happy New Year, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.